You think you understand the rules of salvation, that you know who gets in and who is left out. A saint, one of the most revered mystics of the 20th century, had a vision that shattered all the easy answers. He saw a man in purgatory. This wasn't a fallen priest or a sinful king. The soul he saw belonged to a devout Jewish man, someone who lived and died outside the Catholic Church. According to the strictest doctrines, this should have been impossible. But Padre Pio saw it, and the message he received from this soul changes everything we thought we knew about the mercy of God. To understand the vision, you first have to understand the man. Francesco Forgione, known to the world as Padre Pio, he was a man who lived simultaneously in this world and the next. From his small friary in San Giovanni Rotondo, Italy, he bore the stigmata, the very wounds of Christ, for 50 years. This wasn't a metaphor. It was a physical reality of bleeding, agonizing wounds that never became infected. He was known to read souls in confession, to bilocate, appearing in 2 places at once, and to be in constant, open battle with demonic forces. For Pio, the supernatural was not a theory, it was his daily life. So when he spoke of seeing a soul, it wasn't a dream or a flight of fancy. It was a report from a world he knew as well as our own. And if you believe in such a man, you must grapple with what he saw. Now, let's talk about the place he saw, purgatory. This is one of the most misunderstood concepts in Catholicism. It is not a second chance hell. It is not a place of eternal punishment. The Church teaches that purgatory is a state of purification. It's for those who have died in God's friendship, but are still attached to sin, still carrying the residue of their earthly failings. Think of it like a celestial waiting room, or a spiritual refinery. The souls there are guaranteed to one day enter heaven, but they must first be cleansed of everything that is not of God. The suffering in purgatory is not the suffering of despair, but the pain of intense longing, of wanting to be with God so badly that the weight itself is a purifying fire. This is the place where Padre Pio's vision takes us. A place of hope, of transformation, and, according to him, a place with some very unexpected residents. So why is the idea of a Jewish man in purgatory so revolutionary? It comes down to a doctrine that for centuries was interpreted with ironclad severity. Extra ecclesiam nulla salusis. Outside the Church, there is no salvation. For a long time, many took this to mean that if you were not a baptized Catholic, you could not be saved. It was a hard line, a theological wall, but the Church's understanding of God's mercy has deepened over time. The Second Vatican Council clarified that those who, through no fault of their own, do not know Christ or His Church, but who seek God with a sincere heart and try to do His will as they know it through the dictates of their conscience, they too may achieve eternal salvation. This is often called invincible ignorance, or the baptism of desire. It's the idea that God, who is pure justice and pure mercy, judges the heart. He knows who would have sought Him in the Church if only they had known. This theological shift is the key that unlocks Padre Pio's vision. The story begins not with Pio, but with a visitor. Like thousands of others, this person had traveled to San Giovanni Rotondo with a heavy heart, seeking a miracle or at least a word of comfort from the Holy Friar. Their burden was the soul of a loved one, a man who had recently passed away. This man had been a pillar of his community, known for his kindness, his charity, his integrity. He was a good man by every conceivable measure. There was just one problem in the eyes of the Church. He was Jewish. He had lived his life according to the faith of his ancestors, never knowing Christ or the Church. The visitor was tormented by the thought that this good man, because of the circumstances of his birth and belief, might be lost forever. They brought this impossible question to the one man they thought might have an answer from the other side. Imagine the scene. After a long, exhausting wait, the moment finally comes. The visitor kneels in the darkness of the confessional. Through the screen, they can sense the powerful presence of Padre Pio. They pour out their story, their voice trembling with grief and fear. "Padre, I am here for the soul of a man I loved dearly. He was the best person I knew, but he was Jewish. He died outside the Church. Is there any hope? Is he lost?" In the silence that followed, the weight of centuries of doctrine hung in the air. A lesser priest might have offered platitudes, a gentle but firm restatement of the rules. But Padre Pio was not a lesser priest. He didn't offer a theological textbook answer. He closed his eyes, He listened not just with his ears, but with his soul. What happened next is what makes this story so powerful. Padre Pio did not immediately respond. He went into a state of deep prayer, a trance-like state where the veil between worlds grew thin. And then, he saw it. He was given a grace, a window into the state of this specific soul. He saw the Jewish man. He was not in heaven, not yet perfected, but he was not in hell either. He was in purgatory. He was on the path to salvation. Pio saw him in that state of purification, being cleansed not of his Jewish faith, but of the universal human frailties that cling to all of us. He saw a soul that God had judged not by its label, but by its love, not by its creed, but by its character. The vision was more than just a sight. It was a communication. The soul conveyed a message to Padre Pio. It was a message of immense gratitude, but also a plea. He was saved. Yes, God in his infinite mercy had looked upon his sincere heart and judged him worthy of eventual glory. He had lived according to the light he was given, and that was enough. But his purification was not yet complete. He needed help. He needed prayers. This is the crucial function of the belief in purgatory, that the prayers of the faithful on earth can assist the souls undergoing purification, hastening their journey to God. The soul of this Jewish man was asking the visitor, through Padre Pio, for the very thing they thought was useless, to pray for him. Padre Pio's eyes opened. The connection to the other world faded, but the knowledge remained. He turned to the person kneeling in the dark and said something that must have sounded like a thunderclap of hope. He relayed the vision. He told them he is saved. I have seen him. He is in purgatory. He didn't offer a complex theological discourse. He gave a simple, direct, and divinely sourced answer. He then passed on the soul's request. He asks for your prayers. Do not cease praying for him. Your prayers will help him reach heaven more quickly. The impossible question had received an impossible answer. The wall of doctrine had been replaced by a bridge of mercy. For the visitor, this was a life-altering moment. The burden of fear and theological uncertainty was lifted, replaced by the certainty of God's love and a mission. They now knew their prayers were not empty gestures sent into the void, but powerful acts of charity that could genuinely help the one they loved. The story underscores a profound Catholic belief, the communion of saints, the idea that the Church is not just those on earth, but a family that includes the souls in heaven, the Church triumphant, and the souls in purgatory, the Church suffering. This vision affirmed that this bond of prayer and love could, in God's mysterious plan, extend even to those who were never formally part of the Church on earth. So, how do we reconcile this? Does Padre Pio's private revelation invalidate Church teaching? Not at all. In fact, it beautifully illustrates the Church's deeper, more nuanced understanding of salvation. It doesn't abolish the truth that the Catholic Church holds the fullness of the means of salvation. Instead, it reveals that God is not bound by the means he establishes for us. His mercy is like an ocean, and our doctrines are like cups we use to try and understand it. The cups are useful, they are true, but they can never contain the whole ocean. The vision suggests that this Jewish man was saved not times in spite of times his faith, but perhaps times of the sincerity with which he lived it, a sincerity that God knew would have led him to Christ had he been given the chance. This story forces us to look beyond labels. In the final judgment, it seems we are not asked for our membership card, but for the record of our heart. Did we love? Did we seek truth, even if the path we were on was incomplete? Did we respond to the grace God gave us within our own circumstances? Padre Pio's vision is a powerful testament that God's justice is perfect. He doesn't judge a man from the Amazon rainforest by the same criteria as a theologian from Rome. He judges each soul based on what they knew and how they loved. This Jewish man, by living a life of charity and devotion according to his conscience, was already living in a way that was oriented toward the God of Abraham, the same God who Christians worship. It's easy to see why a story like this might be considered forbidden or dangerous. It challenges simplistic, rigid faith. It can be misinterpreted as saying all religions are the same, which is not what it implies. The vision doesn't lead to universalism, but to a profound trust in God's personal, particular, and merciful judgment. It's a dangerous story for those who want to put God in a box, who want to be the gatekeepers of salvation. But for those who are tormented by the fate of good people they've known and loved outside their own faith, It is a lifeline. It is a secret knowledge that whispers of a God far grander and more merciful than our human rules can ever fully describe. Ultimately, the vision of the Jewish man in purgatory is not a theological puzzle to be solved, but a story of hope to be embraced. It is a perfect reflection of the man who received it. Padre Pio spent his life in a confessional, absorbing the sins and fears of the world and offering God's mercy in return. His life was a testament to a God who seeks out the lost, who breaks rules for the sake of love, and whose mercy is so vast it can build a bridge between a Catholic saint and a Jewish soul, uniting them in the shared hope of heaven. What this story truly tells us is that no sincere cry of the heart goes unheard, and no good life, no matter how it is labeled, is ever lived in vain. The final judgment belongs to God alone, and his defining characteristic is mercy.